Imagine, just for a second, a bundle of cloth patches, right? Each one stitched by a different worker in a factory, but all coming together to form a single, unified piece of fabric. It's actually a really powerful image. And this quote, "I've been thinking about rights, not just legal ones, the ones we owe each other." Man, it really forces us to rethink everything we know about the workplace. It challenges us to stop seeing organizations as these dry, transactional systems focused purely on efficiency, and to start seeing them as what they really are, deeply human communities. So, welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're going to unpack something truly fascinating, which is the evolving, deeply ethical nature of human resources. We are stepping way beyond the paperwork and the policies to look at the very fabric of relations and rights that hold an organization together. It's essentially a journey into how we relate to one another at work, with fairness, with a voice, and crucially, with care. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the rhythm of industrial relations, cover grievances and welfare, look at trade unions and bargaining, zoom out to international HRM, and finally, explore Green HRM. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the rhythm of industrial relations. This is the foundational rhythm between production and protection in literally any organization. Now, if you pop open a standard textbook, you'll see industrial relations defined simply as the relationship between employers, employees, and the institutions that mediate between them. And it's accurate, sure, but it's also kind of sterile, right? It sounds like something drafted by lawyers in a boardroom. I want to pivot from that and look at what this actually looks like on the ground, where the real work happens. We often contrast a purely systemic view, which is usually this obsession with contracts and efficiency, with a human view, which focuses on trust, negotiation, and shared survival. When we talk about industrial relations, we're actually talking about communities stitched together by that shared survival. It's a really delicate balance. It's the rhythm between making things, the production side, and taking care of the actual people who make them, the protection side. Moving on to Section 2, grievances, welfare, and security. Here, we're zooming into the micro level to see exactly how we handle individual complaints and worker well-being. And this brings us to a pretty stark reality. Grievances are warnings. They absolutely must be heard before they become wounds. Our source material shares this incredibly vivid and tragic anecdote from an intern who watched a worker complain about an unsafe machine. And guess what? That complaint was completely ignored by management right up until the terrible moment an accident actually occurred. This perfectly captures why grievance management is so vital. We literally can't afford to view complaints as annoyances. We have to view them as early warning systems. They require proactive, immediate listening. And that brings us to an incredible comparison between doing what is strictly required and doing what is right. Take disputes, for example. In one textile unit, a simple wage cut led to a massive week-long strike. Now, on paper, the dispute was about money, but in reality, it was about dignity. Because when workers feel devalued, it erupts. Now contrast that with a story about a factory owner who built this beautifully shaded rest area for his weavers. Was it required by the Factories Act? Absolutely not. No way. But he built it simply because, in his words, it was right. It was just a profound acknowledgement of their shared humanity. So the crucial point here is this: laws are the floor. Ethics must build the ceiling. We have basic social security schemes, right? Things like the Provident Fund, employee state insurance, gratuity. Legislation sets the minimum standard for survival against economic risks like illness or old age. But legislation is merely the starting point. Providing these benefits isn't just about ticking a compliance box. It's about making a genuine promise to your people. All right, Section 3, trade unions and bargaining. We're shifting our lens here to the collective level to see how workers actually organize and negotiate together. When most people hear the phrase trade unions, they instantly picture strikes and loud protests. But let's look at their actual core functions: bargaining, representation, advocacy, and critically, education. Unions are voices. They're not always loud, but they are always necessary. The source text shares an amazing story of a union leader whose absolute greatest impact wasn't leading a march. Nope. It was simply taking the time to teach workers how to read their own pay slips. Because empowerment at its very core begins with understanding. And this brilliantly illustrates the actual process of collective bargaining: preparation, discussion, proposal, negotiation, and finally, agreement. Too often, we kind of frame bargaining as pure conflict. but it's really a structured conversation. Each of these distinct stages is a deliberate step toward mutual respect. It's the mechanism we use to ensure that power doesn't just silence need. On to Section 4, the scope of international HRM. Let's expand our view and explore the challenges that pop up when a workplace crosses international borders. Managing people across borders is incredibly complex. You run into hurdles like language barriers, profound cultural misunderstandings, and some wildly varied labor laws. The source material recounts a company that completely failed in its overseas venture for one incredibly simple reason. They arrogantly ignored local customs. But the strategies for success directly counter those pitfalls: investing in cultural training, empowering local leadership, and establishing flexible policies. That's how you actually adapt rather than just aggressively expanding. It really all boils down to this. Global doesn't mean uniform. It means plural. International human resource management demands a deep, genuine humility. You can't just copy and paste a corporate culture from one country to another and expect it to work. It requires inclusive communication, and most importantly, it requires the vital ability to listen long before you ever attempt to lead. Finally, Section 5, Green HRM and Sustainability. We are zooming all the way out to the macro planetary scale here. So, what exactly is Green HRM? Well, it's about integrating environmental sustainability directly into human resource practices. But I want to be very clear here. This is not just some passing trend where we toss a few extra recycling bins in the break room. No, this is a massive transition. It is the exact critical intersection where our care for our people directly meets our care for the planet. Let's look at how this takes shape in reality. We're seeing specific green practices pop up, like green recruitment, paperless onboarding, robust remote work policies, eco-friendly training, and even tying performance metrics to sustainability goals. But the narrative here shouldn't just be about shrinking the corporate carbon footprint. It's about the ethical why behind these practices. It's about building an ethical footprint that truly resonates with the people doing the work. And let's see how this actually builds employee engagement. The source shares this brilliant anecdote about a company that introduced incentives for cycling to work. Now, on one level, yeah, that absolutely reduces emissions. But more profoundly, it completely changed how people felt about their commute. It transformed a daily, mindless grind into something purposeful. When environmental policies align with daily human habits, it directly boosts long-term resilience and deepens engagement in a big way. Wow, okay. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, all the way from local union halls to global strategies, straight through to planetary sustainability. But it all comes back to this one powerful summary statement. Relations are not transactions, they're ties. And rights are not privileges, they're promises. Just like that metaphor of the stitched cloth patches we started with, a true organization is woven together by these ethical commitments. So I want to leave you with these exact questions to chew on. What relations do I nurture at work? What rights do I actively protect? And ultimately, what kind of workplace do I want to build? The answers to these questions, well, they're the true fabric of an organization. Take these deep ethical frameworks, apply them to your own workplace, and start weaving something remarkable. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.